Tensions easing between 7 warring villages in Pindu, Morobe province. 46th Pacific Islands Forum officially opens. And PAF chairman says climate change concerns are top priority.
This is National EMTV News with Tokana Hasavi.
A very good evening to you and thanks for joining me with Wednesday's news. We begin tonight's news with a special report. Tensions are starting to ease between people from 7 villages in remote Pindu in the Morobe province who have been involved in an 8-month-long tribal war over land. The Morobe provincial government and Finschhafen district administration managed to negotiate a temporary end to the fighting to allow for government workers to return. But the process is slow and expensive and involves multiple flights into the largely inaccessible communities to talk to village leaders. The people remain armed and provincial government representatives are taking small steps which they hope will lead to surrendering arms. So far, at least 5 people, including a child, have been killed in the conflict. EMTV Scott White with tonight's special report from Pindu.
It took at least 2 attempts before a team was able to reach first the Pindu station, then the outlying areas involved in the tribal conflict. The weather is unpredictable in these parts, but in the last 24 hours the conditions have been ideal to chopper in relief supplies. The chopper landed in Pindu, where life has started to return to normal, but there is still some sense of fear and caution. For miles around, the Pindu station is the only place where people from more than 7 villages access government services. Now with this place closed, there are no health services, no education services, the airstrip is closed, there are no police officers, and the people are suffering. Classrooms remain empty, and it's been like this for 8 months. The dormitories abandoned in haste by students fearing revenge from local tribesmen after the killing of a reserve policeman. The headmaster of Pindu Technical High School requested for the suspension of classes when the trouble began.
Time say heavy come up. I mean, all the man mere runway. Public 7, all the like even Texas, me bla put them along PMV and I go listen more on Gagidu na. Or go out.
Pindu High is not the only school that has been suspended. 26 elementary schools, 16 primary, and 4 community schools are closed. About 5,000 students are without education. In Kwela village alone, 56 houses have been burnt to the ground. A local peace officer killed when the ambush happened. The people fled to the jungle and remain there despite efforts to convince them to return. Some of the casualties are young. A 12-year-old boy killed in one attack. His brother is in the Brown Hospital in Finschhafen, recovering from the vicious attack. From Pindu, we travel to Nyalo village. It is the last in Finschhafen district that sits at the edge of several square kilometers of uninhabited jungle before the border of Kabum district. There is no road into these parts and the people walk for a day before reaching the nearest road. In this male-dominated society, Bessie Serum is a leader in her own right. She managed a household while her husband worked with the provincial government to negotiate peace. Her brother-in-law joined the neighboring Gena villagers who fought the Nyalo.
First time mi plana mi pla ogeta puret na mi pla rone vo ogeta mama papa wante mogeda pikinini America Bell close to la Karen Longen e mi pla ogeta istalobus. Ino close to mountain mi pla aburus na mi pla golong o se molvela bus olen mo sa istaba mi pla go istalajis la ha.
The Morobe provincial government has been very cautious about the use of police to end the fighting, but it has cost them over 500,000 kina for relief for the women and children and to fly teams of negotiators. It has been a very successful operation so far. But the negotiators know that it's not the end. They still have the problem of illegal guns and the possible flare-ups that may happen if they lose focus. Scott White, National MTV News, Ley.
Still on the Pindu conflict, 6 young men responsible for the murder of the police reservist mentioned in our previous report were jailed in Buimo prison in Ley and subsequently escaped in the mass breakout in May. One of the young men spoke off camera to Scott White yesterday, stating how he and 6 others were beaten in prison by correctional service officers and threatened with the death penalty after they surrendered to authorities. Yesterday, the father and brother of one of the young men told MTV News they won't give them up because they've lost confidence in the government's justice system.
25-year-old Ito Songi was one of 6 men responsible for the killing of a Pindu police reservist in May. The murder was a result of ongoing land disputes between the Gena and Nyalo people several kilometers from the Pindu station. After surrendering to authorities, the 6 were sentenced to serve time at Ley's Buimo prison. But whilst in prison, they were beaten by correctional service officers and reportedly threatened with the death penalty. In May, the 6 escaped along with 50 others in a much publicized prison breakout. Now the Nyalo community say they won't give up Ito and the 6 others because they've lost confidence in the justice system that was supposed to protect them. Ito Songil's older brother and other family members have appealed to authorities to find an alternative to let them serve their time.
Ole paitimol, igat big pla magistalo skindol mangi. Katimolo waya, pipe, katimolo 1 meter, na kalabosimol na tokimol. Now, tomorrow 1 pla osem duty by duty, 1 man by guantap, amol tok. Mi pla come inside that, you pla baksimpen osem et igo na ba you pla die. Lo handlo mi pla.
These pictures were sent to MTV last month anonymously with a specific request to alert the Correctional Service Commissioner, Michael Waipo, on the abuses that were happening in Buimo prison. It shows Ito Songil wiping a broken nose. The other images show the evidence of severe beatings the other young men received in prison.
2. Amol togosem. Death penalty. Amlo morobe. Am yupla disla 6 pla man. Ba yupla opim road. Yupla by first line na behind ogeta all big pla man stop. All ba kam behind all yupla. How all treating him all? Tok oli give him long all. Lo displa. All mangiet go na oled lusimpanis na oli kam. Na now all establo community blong all.
The CS Commissioner was alerted of the incident. An investigation is understood to have been completed but is awaiting government endorsement. The verbal testimonies of the escapees have now also named the officers involved in the beatings, and the community say their lives are at risk if they go back to prison. Scott White, National MTV News, Ley.
Meanwhile, Morobe Governor Kelly Naru says the tribal fighting in various parts of the province is costing the provincial government up to 1.6 million kina to resolve. Apart from Pindu, there is also fighting in Wasu and Bukawa, where lives have been lost and properties destroyed.
Basically, what has happened is that we have had instances of law and order issues right across the province. Like Bulolo, Ley City itself and elsewhere. And so what we've done is we have progressed some of these law and order issues. And for what we have progressed so far to the point of solution or potential solution, reconciliation, finality, all these stages, so far they've cost us about 1 million kina. And we have identified funding for that, and we are now settling some of our debts in relation to that. For the new issues that are arising and for the ongoing matters that we would need to manage and successfully resolve, it's going to cost us in the vicinity of 600,000 kina.
Sega relief for Manam villages and port security concerns necessary. We'll have those stories plus many more when we come back. Stay with us. Good to have you back with National MTV News. The 46th Pacific Islands Forum was officially opened last night by PNG Prime Minister Peter O'Neill. The opening ceremony was held at the Aquatic Centre, where an array of traditional groups welcomed the leaders attending the forum. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, in his welcome speech, thanked the Pacific nations on entrusting Papua New Guinea to host the 46th Pacific Island Forum. He reassured Pacific Islanders that all issues being faced by all Pacific nations will be addressed during the forum.
Leaders were welcomed to the opening ceremony with a traditional array of sing-sing groups showing the diversity of the soon-to-be 40-year-old nation. The Secretary General of the Pacific Island Forum, Dame Meg Taylor, said this was a professional and personal achievement for her, as this would be the first time she would address the forum as the General Secretary and in her home country. She congratulated the outgoing chair-president of Palau, Tommy Brenegasau, on a job well done in addressing issues in the region.
Once a relatively informal meeting of leaders is now a major summit, attracting the attention and participation of many other nations and international and regional organizations. Through the forum, your countries have worked together to make the Pacific a better place in numerous ways. For example, through the presenting a united voice against the nuclear testing and establishing a legally binding nuclear-free zone for the Pacific.
Palau President encouraged leaders to discuss heavily on the issues of fisheries and climate change.
To remember the extreme hardships that our brothers and sisters are enduring in the highlands at this time. Our thoughts and prayers go out to families who have lost their loved ones. The damaging effects of a strong El Nino, as well as the increasing vulnerabilities of our countries to a range of natural hazards, which often leads to disasters, provide us with added impetus and urgency to address one of the factors of this devastating drought, climate change.
The Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Peter O'Neill, gave his assurance that issues on climate change and other issues will be addressed. O'Neill said that regionalism is a key in addressing regional issues.
This priority process, as determined by the leaders through the Pacific regionalism, must be the focus of our partnership and engagement. This includes greater inclusiveness in the relationship and in the way we engage with each other. It also involves improving our mechanisms for engagement at all levels, such as the post-forum dialogue partners, and of course the plenary meeting from this year onwards. This will enhance alignment with the regional priorities and help achieve deeper regionalism, which the leaders' vision is shown through the framework.
Adelaide Sirox-Kari, National EMTV News.
Well, climate change was high on the agenda at the official opening ceremony of the Pacific Islands Forum held last night in Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. Outgoing chair of the forum and president of Palau, Tommy Brenegasau, says as large ocean island states, the ocean is our livelihood, culture and economy. Incoming chair of PIF and Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Peter O'Neill, says the 21st session on climate change conference is the most critical opportunity for the Pacific to make sure its views are taken into account.
Among the various points of discussion held at the Pacific Island Forum opening, climate change was given prominence. Outgoing chair of the Pacific Islands Forum and president of Palau, Tommy Brenegasau, acknowledged the hardships faced by Pacific communities brought about by climate change. He said the increasing vulnerabilities of Pacific communities to natural hazards that lead to disasters are reasons why climate change needs to be addressed urgently.
We continue to look to a spirit of goodwill and of the Pacific way of looking out for one another from forum leaders and peoples as we enter into discussions, particularly as we in SIS countries face clear and present and existential threats with regards to climate change.
Incoming chair of the Pacific Island Forum and Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Peter O'Neill, said climate change was an issue of high importance in the region. He said all member countries had a collective obligation to act on behalf of the most vulnerable members of the Pacific community. He said the changing weather patterns are undermining the region's food security.
There will be more crop failures, as well as spread of plant diseases and pests as weather conditions continue to change. Change in ocean conditions with increase in water temperature and acid levels will also be very bad for our fisheries industry.
Mr. O'Neill urged the region to act now. This, he said, meant reaching out to the larger countries contributing to climate change and draw their support. He said Pacific people should not have to change their way of life or abandon thousands of years of tradition because of the actions of larger countries producing carbon emissions.
Therefore, as a region, we must demand a change of attitude through international forums such as the United Nations. This is important as we approach COP21 in Paris in December. The 21st session of Climate Change Conference is the most critical opportunity for the Pacific to make sure that its views are taken into account.
This morning, the forum leaders were invited to a private breakfast at the Parliament State Function Room hosted by the Speaker Theo Zurano. That was followed by an official photograph session at the Parliament's main foyer. Deli Waigeno, National EMTV News.
Civil society from the Pacific want the process of direct interaction with leaders from the forum as a recommendation for future Pacific Island forums. This year was the first time civil society organizations had direct interaction with forum leaders on issues to be discussed during the 46th Pacific Islands Forum. CSO spokesperson Ann Singeo from Palau in an interview said the CSOs are the ones to implement policies and resolutions reached by the forum, thus are an integral part of the forum. The CSO had dialogues with the forum leaders before the actual forum.
For the first time, civil society from across the Pacific united in one voice and delivered their key advice to Pacific Island Forum leaders. Through a framework endorsed in 2014, civil societies were invited to present their deliberations on the 5 topics for discussion at the 46th Pacific Islands Forum. Apart from the other 4 issues affecting the Pacific, CSOs believe that not addressing the West Papua cause and its glaring and apparent injustices is no longer an option. Leaders from the Republic of Palau, Marshall Islands, Federated States of Micronesia, and Papua New Guinea heard their deliberations.
But what we had kind of put a little bit of emphasis on was that we hope that this process becomes a requirement in their forum in order for them to be able to really have that direct dialogue with us in the civil society, because what we do actually brings their policy into the communities and the lives of the people of our nations.
The CSOs say their engagement in the forum leaders' meetings brings all together in a Pacific way, a way which restores the links between the community and the leaders. Engaging the civil society was an important aspect because these are the people who live alongside local people in the different communities in respective Pacific nations.
An issue that came up that really was heartfelt and put people to tears in the room was the whole issue of the West Papuan people. Amazingly, so many of us who are in this civil society forum who are not necessarily from this area.
The CSOs have called for long-term formal commitment to engagement based on transparency and dialogue in partnership. They want their deliberations to be considered by the forum leaders. CSOs welcome the opportunity to engage in a new era of Pacific regionalism and carefully track their input to forum leaders being used this week.
Uncomfortable positions for leadership, and that's when they really need the people to come and stand and say that we are ready to work on this issue, because it gives them a little bit more cushion to take those very trial issues.
Alana Lay, National EMTV News.
A new health clinic in the Garahu suburb of Port Moresby has recorded an increase in patients seeking medical attention. The clinic, owned by Catholic Church Health Services, began its operations in July and already recording over 1,000 patients. Clinical staff told EMTV News figures have increased due to closure of some health facilities here in Port Moresby. EMTV's Fabian Akalitz has more.
St. Paul's Day Operation Clinic is a Catholic Church health facility located at Garrow State 6 in the nation's capital. The clinic is into its 2 months of operation with a ratio of 10 clinical staff to 150,000 people in the Garrow catchment. Officer in charge Sister Rondi Maso told EMTV News the facility was built as a STI, HIV and AIDS clinic. However, due to the demand, it expanded to cater for people's health needs and to fulfill the mission to promote and protect lives.
Promote individual and system accountability for delivering safe, quality healthcare at St. Paul's Clinic. Actually, those are our guiding principles to help us achieve these objectives.
The closure of St. John's Hospital in Garrow has forced patients to access this facility. Not only that, but already patients from 9 Mile, Moratha and Boroko also access these services.
Actually, we couldn't tell them that because they chose to come, and also like with the other facilities that are closing down now, we are expecting these numbers, expecting the numbers to rise.
Catholic Church Health Services Secretary Justine McMahon thanked the PNG and the Australian government for their partnership with churches in delivering the much needed services.
Good example of partnership between the Department of National Planning and Monitoring, National Department of Health, Catholic Church and the Australian Aid Program.
St. Paul's Clinic welcomes patients and will provide the healthcare service. Plans are underway for more awareness on preventative health in the nearby communities and schools. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
Minister for Lands and Physical Planning, Benny Allen, has maintained the department's stand to remove illegal settlements in Port Moresby. However, he says developers must make sure that they have plans to relocate settlers. The minister was responding to recent land evictions in Port Moresby, where over 30 homes and properties worth over $1 million kina were destroyed by land developers.
The Lands Minister, when responding to the recent land evictions in Port Moresby, said settlers must be aware not to settle on state land. This is to avoid evictions.
You know, the important thing that the message to our people is that, you know, don't squat on state land. If you want to live on state land, you apply, follow the process. Always check with the Lands Department.
Over the last 5 weeks, 2 evictions in Port Moresby have seen homes and properties of hundreds destroyed. At Konadobu, over 20 houses of people who have settled there for over 20 years destroyed, and at Danwaya 4 Mile, over 7 homes destroyed. The minister was aware of these evictions and said if developers have the proper titles to those lands, then they have the right to evict settlers living on their land.
Whether it's a Papua New Guinean or a foreigner, the title there is a legal title and legal document, and they use that to evict our people. Very unfortunate. I don't want that to happen.
However, he said if developers are evicting people, then a proper relocation plan must be in place. He said the department will also try to create such resorts, so it is a win-win situation for land developers and settlers.
One good example is where the settlers at Pagahil, they were evicted, and the company relocated them. So if we can have developers coming with that kind of way, that is good for our people.
Meanwhile, Minister Allen said foreign-owned companies who are dealing with land development in PNG must seek advice from the Lands Department before moving into land that might be customary or state-owned. Stanley Ovett Jr., National EMTV News.
And now let's take a look at the finance news. The kina closed unchanged at $0.3550 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, our kina was trading at $0.3475 $0.4915 Australian dollars, 0.3065 euro and 41.31 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold closed the day lower, while copper, coffee and cocoa all closed the day higher. Palm oil closed lower, while crude oil and copper closed the day higher. And finally, on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 390 points lower, the ASX closed at 82 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed at 85 points higher as well. You're watching National EMTV News tonight. MVIL plans to establish an office in the Solomon Islands. That story plus more when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. The Motor Vehicle Insurance Limited, or MVIL, has plans to expand into the Pacific region. Chief Executive Officer Joe Wemin says they have already established talks with the Solomon Islands government to establish an office there. He says the Independent Public Business Corporation, or IPBC, has given its approval for the expansion in the region.
PNG's motor vehicle in business outlook looks promising heading into the future. Chief Executive Officer Joe Wemin says MVIL remains optimistic of its plans to expand into the regional market.
We are actually thinking of moving into the Pacific. We have had initial discussions with Solomon Islands and looks positive from his end. But you know, the future is, though we are optimistic, you can't really predict the future, but we are optimistic of moving into the Pacific.
MVIL recently completed its 3-year business strategic plan in the country by establishing offices in all centers in PNG. This has proven to be cost-effective for the company in generating much-needed revenue.
They operated through an agreement with the provincial government and the state institutions, so the operational cost in terms of rental and so forth has been minimized at very low. And at this stage, we are going to monitor the performance of its branches to see which can be categorized as our social responsibility to the country and with economic.
MVIL is also aligning its plans with the overarching National Development Plans, the Vision 2050 and the Medium-Term Development Plan. In doing so, it has recruited 51 new employees targeting youths. All this is aimed at addressing unemployment in the youth segment of the population.
Basically, in the overall contribution, I think we have to lay a foundation for this young generation to learn the business skills, build confidence, and then to effectively contribute to the overall economic. But as a form of investment, you don't expect returns immediately. You would expect their returns out of their performance in years to come.
Mickey Cavera, National EMTV News.
Morabei's provincial government has begun delivering relief supplies to parts severely affected by the El Nino, starting in Waria in the Bulolo district, where people have died. The province is also facing money problems, but has allocated 1 million kina into its provincial disaster relief efforts. Morabei Governor Kelly Naru says he has asked the national government for an additional 2.5 million kina.
The scramble to get relief supplies to parts of the province worst affected by the dry spell has begun. People in Waria of the Bulolo district face severe food and water shortages, and from reports, some have died. The ward will receive 300,000 kina worth of food supply from the provincial government.
Our initial assessment is about 2.4 million. And as you know, this is the kind of assistance that we require from the national government. But with that kind of assistance, and of course with our 1 million, and of course with 500,000 already on the ground for Minyama, that's almost close to 4 million kina. And that is the kind of number that we are looking at if we are to service all our affected areas in the province, realistically.
While other 8 districts wait to receive help from a provincial government budget of 1 million kina for the El Nino relief. Minyamia district has received 500,000 kina from the national government. The Provincial Executive Council diverted funds from non-essential projects to carry out provincial relief assistance. A disaster committee has been created and Provincial Administrator Patilius Gamato heads it.
So one of the first things we did was to recommend to the government to make a budget cut of 1 million kina. And so this afternoon's first relief supply is out of that 1 million kina, about 300,000 kina committed.
But this relief assistance doesn't come easy. Morobe provincial government is relying heavily on its internal revenue. It has received 3 million kina of the 45 million kina PSIP funds from the national government. The dry spell is putting a strain on the province's resources, but efforts have started with Warrior.
Morobe province is a fairly large province. To get relief supplies to the affected areas in the 9th district will put a strain on provincial government resources, and it will mean more funding from the national government. It will also challenge the capabilities of district administrations. Bethany Harriman, National EMTV News, Leh.
The Bodbod people of Bogia in Medang province have donated parcels and bags of sago to Manam Islanders to help with their urgent need for food. They are the first group of people, apart from the government, to provide sago as relief for the volcano-affected islanders.
The Bodbod villages gave away more than 1,000 sago bags to the volcano-affected islanders who are currently in dire need for food and water especially.
Na total figure 1,425 logim online.
This is not the first time the Bodbod villages sought to help their sister village just on the other side of the bay, as it was a traditional practice since their ancestors' times under the barter system.
So working barter system or passing long. Sorry, na bring him something exchange lo mi play yet. No time before long. Tumuna na ikam lol papa na now mi play.
The villages only asked for the provincial government's disaster office help to provide fuel to transport the bags of sago to the islanders, to which 1 drum of fuel was provided. The provincial disaster coordinator, Rudolf Mongali, told the Bodbod community and representatives of the Manam Islanders that the delay of response to their request for fuel is due to the government system.
Okay, checking around block sim fuel. Let me delay him time. Mr. him to see. You know, come block sim where saksakia do kono manam. So me talk sorry, but me don't answer me something system long government name say make me delay him slack.
Mr. Mongali also mentioned that other donations will be made by the Adi Tuna Fish Cannery as well as the Catholic Church in Medang. Rachel Shiste, National EMTV News, Medang.
PNG swimmers going to finals and PNG kickboxers prepare for 4 major events. We'll have those stories in True Guy Sports when we come back. Stay tuned.
True Guy Sports.
Welcome to True Guy Sports. The young PNG athletes in Samoa are doing well in the first leg of the competition. In boxing, 30-year Katua won his fight with a split decision to advance to the semi-finals. In athletics, Miriam Penny ran an impressive 200-meter race, clocking a time of 21.31 seconds in the semi-finals to qualify for the final heat. She ran her personal best time of 25.25 seconds. That's 0.07 seconds faster than her qualifying time in the semi-finals. In tennis, Matthew Stubbins and Violet Apisa won their matches in the mixed doubles division and are both through to the semi-finals. In the pools, Ryan Mascalini and Savannah Chichenko both qualify in the semi-finals to make the final cut, which will be held later on tonight, and the results will be aired in tomorrow's bulletin, so you can look forward to that. In PNG Kickboxing Federation, the federation itself is gearing up for 4 major events in the kickboxing calendar for the remainder of the year. The code is embarking on strengthening its reputation through both local and international tournaments. The Open Martial Arts and Kickboxing Championships will be the first event where provincial member associations from PNG's 4 regions are expected to attend at the end of this month.
The PNG Kickboxing Federation is looking forward in driving the development of the combat code in the country. The code has come under fire over the years after facing instability, with numerous parties claiming legitimacy to run the appropriate governing body. Upon his re-election as president of the PNG Kickboxing Federation early this year, Stanley Nandex is adamant that all associations should put aside their political agendas and set their sights on further developing the code. The number of kickboxers that competed in the 2014 PNG Games suggests that kickboxing may be one of the fastest growing combat sports, apart from the traditional football codes of soccer and rugby league. With the sporting calendar drawing to a close, the Federation is gearing up for the Open Martial Arts and Kickboxing Championships from the 25th to the 27th of this month in Kundiawa. The tournament will be used as a platform to select kickboxers for the Unified World Kickboxing Championships. While a venue is yet to be confirmed for the Punch of the Century to be held in early December between PNG and Australia, Pangia District will host the Peter O'Neill Cup from the 17th to the 19th of December. Scholar Sengi, National EMTV Sports.
The 2015 PNG Men's Snooker Minor Titles is set to queue off this evening with a briefing for all registered players at Lamana's Q Club. Players from both Kaveng and Alata will take on rivals Port Moresby in the hope of taking out the title. 48 players have been placed in 8 pools of 6 players each and will take to the table in the first round-robin match tonight. The 2014 Men's Minor Title champion, Emmanuel Kapi, and runner-up Toa Simoy have advanced into the Men's Minor Title set for next week. Champion Marcus Ning, Port Moresby Open winner Ralph Kaina, and 9-time defending champion Dujon Fong have arrived in the nation's capital prior to the major titles next week. The top 16 of the minor titles will be played on Saturday, with the semi-final and grand final to be played on Sunday at Dragon's Den. The winner and runner-up will automatically advance into the men's major titles next year. Sagiaro to face PNG Kumuls. We'll bring you that story when we come back. Stay with us.
True Kai Sports.
Good to have you back with True Kai Sports. 10 athletes were elected as PNG athlete members of the Athletes Commission during the Pacific Games in July this year. The nominees were put forward by their respective national federations for the AC elections. Karo Lelai was appointed the new chairperson for the Papua New Guinea Athletes Commission. Her term runs from this year, 2015, through to 2019. Ryan Penny, as deputy chairman, was also nominated by the Pacific Games Council athlete representative. He was successfully voted in by fellow Pacific Games athletes at the recent Pacific Games. Penrith Panthers hooker James Seguiaro has been named in the Australian Prime Minister's 13th train-on squad to face his birth country Papua New Guinea at the end of this month. The 24-year-old made his debut for the Kumuls in the same fixture 4 years ago.
Seguiaro was named the NRL's Dally M Hooker of the Year in 2014. He missed out on representing PNG at the 2013 World Cup through injury. The son of the former late Kumul and Great Schoolboys competition initiator Ifiso Seguiaro has finally come to realizing his dreams to play for Australia. He is one of the 4 Panthers named in the side commissioned by the Australian Rugby League on Monday. Penrith coach Ivan Cleary has taken charge of the team and says the game in Port Moresby will be an important match for the players who are ultimately selected and a stepping stone for some ahead of the 2017 World Cup. Meanwhile, PNG RFL is yet to name the Kumul side to take on Australia. Elijah Lavette, National EMTV Sports.
Well, captain of the gold medal PNG women's touch football team, Vavina Yore, spoke about her achievements after the Pacific Games. She is currently now employed by her team's major sponsor, Paradise Tailoring.
After the successful journey of the Pacific Games, Vavina Yore, one of the Games ambassador who also swept up bronze in the World Cup in Sydney and also the gold during the Pacific Games, has earned her self-employment and now works as a sales coordinator for Paradise Tailoring, major sponsors for the Hela Wigman Rugby League team.
The privilege of being employed by Paradise Tailoring, a 100% nationally owned company. Now, how I became to know Paradise Tailoring is they were our uniform sponsor for the 2015 World Cup, which the Team PNG touch football team attended as a lead-up game to the Pacific Games.
Vavine recaps her team's gold medal performance during the Pacific Games and how it felt to play on home soil in front of family, friends and the people of Papua New Guinea. A journey she will not forget as captain, winning that gold medal with her team after 18 months of preparations away from workforce, juggling training and being a mother.
It was really, really satisfying at the end of the day, more than anything else. And then after that came the excitement and the reality that we actually won gold on home soil, and really, really a proud moment too.
Yura still has more to offer. She now will be eyeing to retain that gold medal come the 2019 Pacific Games in Nuku'alofa, Tonga, and also the World Cup. Also in her future prospect is a spot at coaching.
I have a level 1 Australian certificate to coach, as well as referee, so I use that in my local association. I am an athlete as well as a coach.
Touch Rugby has given her a platform to excel, to travel and set a benchmark in PNG sports history. With success comes sacrifice, one that Vavine had to juggle to be part of the Pacific Games. Mike Koime, National EMTV Sports.
Well, True Guy Sports wraps up on that note. Stay tuned. We'll bring you the weather details for the next 24 hours coming up next.
True Guy Sports.
Taking a quick look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in southern region, fine although cloudy at times expected in the nation's capital and Kerema. In Mamasia, Lake City, to look forward to cloudy weather with some chances of showers. In the New Guinea Islands, fine weather expected in Moringa. And lastly, in the islands region, cloudy periods for Goroka, Mount Hagen and Kundiawa. Well, that wraps up the news, sports and weather this Wednesday, the 9th of September 2015. On behalf of the news crew, I'm Tokana Hasavi Jr. Thanks for your company. You take care and stay happy. Good night.